My nephew told everyone I was losing my mind. He said it to my sister, to my principal, to a school board liaison, and eventually to an HR department. He said it carefully and warmly, the way he did everything. He had been saying it, I would later find out, for 14 months before I knew a single word of it. I want to tell you exactly what happened. Not the version where I figured it out quickly and handled it well. The real one, where I sat in a parking lot for 11 minutes after a phone call, and then drove home and checked my practice schedule like that was going to help. My name is Vincent. I coached wrestling for 26 years. My nephew's name was Darnell, and I'm going to tell you what he forgot. Familix's Revenge. Subscribe if you want the full story. Let me take you back 14 months. I've been coaching at the same school for 26 years. Same wrestling room. Same radiator that knocks twice before it catches heat every morning. The room smells like rubber mat and industrial cleaner, and I stopped being able to notice it sometime around year 8. But I notice when it's gone, on off days, holidays, the 2 weeks in August before preseason starts. My left knee has been giving me trouble for about 2 years now. I haven't mentioned it to anyone. That's not stubbornness exactly. It's more that I measure how I'm doing by what I can tolerate without complaint, and the knee hasn't crossed that line yet. The people in my orbit are few and consistent. Phyllis has worked the front office for 31 years and knows everything about everyone in that building. She says almost nothing. We've worked 40 feet apart for over 2 decades, and I'd estimate we've exchanged maybe 400 words of personal conversation total. Quaim was one of my wrestlers, came back at 23, said he didn't have anywhere better to be, and has been my assistant coach for 8 years. He communicates mostly through presence. Gerald runs the deli on the corner, and has made my sandwich the same way every Tuesday and Thursday for 11 years without ever asking if I wanted it different. I've never told any of these people they matter to me. That's not the kind of man I am. I assume they know. Darnell is my sister Margaret's son. He was born when I was 34, which is the year I understood I wasn't going to have children of my own. Not because anything happened, just because the decision kept getting deferred until it wasn't a decision anymore. I don't know when exactly I made up my mind about Darnell. I don't think there was a moment. It was more like a slow accumulation, showing up to his games, covering a car repair, helping with rent when the job situation was uncertain. Over 8 years it added up to around $47,000. I kept approximate figures in my head, because nothing was ever written down. Writing it down would have made it alone. I called it something else. I've thought about the math underneath that choice since. He called me my guy. From the time he was 19. I never asked him to stop. He had a way of making a room feel warmer just by being in it, remembered everyone's birthday, asked follow-up questions, sent voice messages when a text would have been easier. I thought that was just who he was. I still think that's partly true. The warmth wasn't entirely a performance. That's the part that's hardest to file away. The last Thanksgiving before everything started, he asked me about an investment property I owned. Asked me 3 times actually. Each time the question was slightly reworded, like he was trying a different key in the same lock. I answered the same way each time. After the 3rd answer he took out his phone and typed something. I noticed. I didn't say anything. I filed it in the place where I put things I'd rather not examine directly. That's the word I use for it. Filed. I should have put my coffee down and looked at him. I didn't. Margaret called on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the school parking lot, engine running, practice just finished. She led with how she was. Asked about the knee. I said it was fine. And then her voice changed register slightly, the way it does when she's been rehearsing something. Darnell mentioned you seemed a little confused at Thanksgiving, she said. He's just worried about you. I didn't say anything for a moment. Not because I was processing, because I recognized the shape of it before I could name what it was. The mug, the phone typing, the 3rd question reworded, I said. What exactly did he say? Not a question. She heard the flatness and started talking more, filling in, explaining, softening. I said, I see. Then I said I had to go. I sat in that parking lot for 11 minutes after the call ended. I know it was 11 because I looked at the clock twice. I didn't call anyone. I drove home, made dinner I couldn't taste, and checked my practice schedule for the following week. The mechanism worked exactly as designed. For 3 weeks after that I coached better than I had in years. I used the Coach Vin mug every morning. The wrestling room doesn't require explanation. You either hold the position or you don't, and I held it. Quaim noticed something. He didn't say anything. I noted that precisely and filed it next to everything else. The HR document was in my locker on a Tuesday morning. District letterhead. Family concern regarding staff members' cognitive fitness. I read it once, folded it, put it back, and went to first period. I came back at lunch and read it again. The second reading was different. I said one word under my breath. I hadn't said it in front of an athlete in 26 years. That evening I called a woman named Carol Sims. Someone had given me her name. I told her I had a situation. Carol Sims had a clean desk and one window. I sat across from her and explained the situation the way I'd rehearsed it in the car. $47,000 in informal support between family members, no documentation. A nephew who apparently had concerns about my cognitive fitness. She listened without interrupting. Then she asked, "Did he ever explicitly promise repayment?" I went still. She turned her notepad so I could read what she'd written. No documentation, no repayment terms, no witnesses. That's correct, I said. That's also Darnell's entire argument, she said. I looked at the notepad for a while, not at Carol. The notepad. I'd built him a door across 26 years of not asking, not writing things down. Not making it alone because making it alone would have required making it something I examined. He hadn't picked the lock. I'd left it open. I didn't turn the radio on driving home. Made dinner. Couldn't tell you what it was. Checked the schedule for the next day's practice. I've handled worse by showing up the following morning. So I showed up. Carol called 3 days after our first meeting. The principal had received a family concern inquiry 11 months ago, not 4 months. 11. And 3 additional institutional contacts she was still tracing. I was at my kitchen table when she told me. The Coach Van mug was in front of me. Brought it home to wash. The lounge sink had a pressure problem. I looked at it for a while after the call. I did the math on when Darnell was in 4th grade, and what I was apparently teaching him, without knowing I was teaching anything. The second meeting with Carol was shorter. She referred me to a forensic psychologist, Dr. Marcus Ray's, capacity assessments, cited in 7 court cases. I stood up when she explained what the assessment involved. Carol waited. 4 seconds. I've been coaching for 26 years, I said. I know. Sit down, Vincent. Darnell already made you a case. The question is whether you're going to answer it. I sat down. Set up the appointment. 3 days before, I called Carol's office to reschedule. Her assistant put me on hold. Carol picked up. Thursday, Vincent. I didn't reschedule. There was a family gathering that weekend. My cousin's birthday. Darnell was there refilling glasses, warm the way he always was. Said McGuy twice. At one point he made brief eye contact with me mid-story. Held it one beat, looked away. I'm not certain it was intentional. 90% certain. I stopped looking for a version where I was wrong about what he'd done. The morning of the assessment, Quaim was in the parking lot, leaning against his car. I didn't ask how he knew. He said, "I'll drive." I got in. We didn't speak on the way. He waited 3 hours. Dr. Ray said the assessment would take 3 hours, and there were no trick questions. At 90 minutes he showed me a photograph and asked me to name the object. The word wasn't there for 4 seconds. It came back. He wrote something down. I said one word under my breath, same word as the HR document. Afterward I sat in Quaim's car 22 minutes, engine off. I had passed, almost certainly. But I didn't know what to do with 3 hours of being studied for the thing I'm most afraid of being. Quaim drove to Gerald's. Ordered my sandwich without asking. We ate in the car, I said. You didn't have to do this. He said, I know. That was all. The report took 10 business days. I coached. Made bad coffee every morning. 3 days after the assessment, a sandwich from Gerald's appeared on my desk in the coach's lounge. No note, nothing. I ate it looking at the Tuesday drill rotation. That was the whole thing. That was enough. Phyllis passed me in the hallway that same week and nodded once. I nodded back. Neither of us has mentioned any of it since. Carol called when the report arrived. 14 pages. All benchmarks normal, several above average. She explained what it meant legally: formal documentation, admissible counter, evidence. The kind of thing a school district doesn't argue against when a man has 2 state championships on the wall. I felt something release in my chest. It lasted about 40 seconds. There's something else, Carol said. Discovery had produced the full institutional contact log. The principal contact wasn't 4 months ago. It was 11 months ago. 4 separate contact points across 11 months. I did the arithmetic quietly. 3 months after the last loan. He'd needed enough of a pattern first before he could call it a concern. Carol asked me in our 4th meeting about a property conversation. 3 years ago. Thanksgiving? The one where I'd been thinking out loud about selling a small investment property. Darnell had described it to Margaret afterward as talking me out of a rash decision. I'd let that stand at the time, because correcting it would have required a conversation I didn't want to have. I told Carol all of it. She wrote it down without commenting. I knew what she was writing. He couldn't have laid the groundwork without me providing some of it first. I didn't say that out loud. Filed it. Carol was requesting documentation from the family attorney Darnell had consulted. Standard discovery, she said. Nothing unusual. I asked if it was a problem that he'd consulted an attorney. She said, it depends on when. I didn't know what she meant yet. I asked what happened if the district rejected the assessment report. She said, they won't. Dr. Reyes has been cited in 7 court cases. They will accept it. First time I believed the outcome was certain. Not hoped. Believed. Carol called at 7 in the morning. I hadn't made coffee yet. She said Darnell had consulted a guardianship attorney 14 months ago. 7 months before the HR filing. 11 months before Margaret called me. The consultation predated any expressed concern by at least half a year. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I said, he built the reason afterward. Carol said, Wes, she said, that's our case. I sat at the kitchen table after we hung up. The architecture was complete now, the warm nephew, the birthday voice messages. My guy, said in rooms full of people who didn't know what it meant. All of it assembled after the decision had already been made 14 months ago. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt the specific weight of understanding something fully for the first time. Carol's letter was 2 paragraphs. I read it in her office that afternoon. It stated the facts: HR filing dismissed, formal capacity assessment on record, guardianship consultation documented 14 months prior to any expressed concern, $47,000 formally recorded. Any further action would be met with civil and potentially criminal response. I said, send it. She sent it. I drove back to school and ran afternoon practice. That's the shortest paragraph in this story, and it should be. The family attorney called Carol's office within 24 hours. Withdrew. Separately billed Darnell for the consultation and made clear he was unavailable going forward. Carol's assistant mentioned it in an email, almost as a footnote. I read it the next morning at 6:10 with the bad coffee. The attorney had billed him separately. I thought about that for a while. It was the most satisfying detail in the entire situation, which tells you something about what I'd been hoping for versus what I actually needed. Margaret called 4 days after the letter. The call was short. She said, I should have called you first. I said, yes. She said, I'm sorry, Vince. I said, I know. 4 seconds of silence. She said, okay. I said, okay. The call ended. I didn't say it was fine because it wasn't quite. Margaret is not Darnell. I know the difference. She believed him because believing him was easier. I understand that. Understanding it and forgiving it aren't the same thing. I haven't decided yet if they need to be. 11 days after the letter, Darnell texted, Uncle Vince, I think we should talk. I read it and put the phone face down. 3 days later I read it again. Still haven't responded. I have versions of what I might say. None of them feel right yet. The HR filing was formally dismissed. Carol confirmed by email, 2 sentences. The principal called me into his office, said he should have contacted me directly when the family inquiry arrived. I said I understood. I do understand, it still bothers me. I filed that too. 6 weeks after the letter, the HR filing is formally off the record. Darnell's narrative has no institutional ground left to stand on. The family attorney is gone. Margaret and I have exchanged 3 texts, short, functional. The relationship alive if not repaired. The $47,000 is documented. I haven't decided about civil recovery. The principal's failure sits in the same folder as everything else I'm not ready to examine. The folder is getting full. The wrestling room is having its best preseason in 3 years. I don't know if that's connected to anything or just how seasons go. Quame is there. Phyllis is there. Gerald's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My left knee still hurts. I still haven't mentioned it. My life looks the same from the outside. Something in the middle of it is different. I don't have a word for it yet. It's not peace exactly, it's more like I know where the edges are now. This morning I took the KOHVN mug out of the cabinet under the sink, where it's been for 6 weeks. Looked at it. 4th grade handwriting, crooked handle, blue letters uneven. I put it on the shelf. Not the hook where it used to live. Not back in the cabinet. The shelf, a place that's neither display nor storage. I made the bad coffee and drank it standing up, looking at where I'd put it. Quame came in at 6:45. He saw the mug. Didn't say anything. Poured his coffee into a paper cup and sat down. We went over the practice plan for the day. The radiator knocked twice before it caught heat. At some point I realized I could smell the wrestling room through the wall. Rubber mat, industrial cleaner. I haven't been able to smell it for weeks. I didn't say anything about that. Neither did Quame. That's the whole story. Familix's Revenge. Subscribe if it meant something. See you at the next one.